and have these conversations with us. At some point, you will also be able to share in your opinions and also ask questions regarding the topics that we'll be discussing today. Now, there has been a lot of talk in the Uganda Law Society where the current president, Isaac Ssemakadde, is wreaking havoc and shaking tables. If I may borrow from the lingo of today, the table he's shaking has people's drinks, but he is not relenting and he is going on and on. Now, the update right now is where he dismissed or denied the candidacy for the former president of Uganda Law Society, Fiona Wall, from joining the Judicial Service Commission, and also asked other members of the Uganda Law Society not to support her. But she came out to defend herself regarding the same. Now we wait and see, will she join the Judicial Service Commission or will she not? Among the accusations he levied against her, he said that her presidency was characterized by bribery and cases of sexual harassment, to mention but a few. But then she said it was during her presidency when they actually started a campaign to undo sexual harassment, especially for young lawyers in the Uganda Law Society or in the judicial system. So a lot is happening on that side, but I'm curious to know the stories my colleagues have been following, because if there is anything that happens in this country, it is news, and it happens from every facet of life and every corner of Uganda. Now, going to Studio B, let me check on the gentleman. Good morning, Jerome Paul.
Good morning, Olive, and good morning to our dear viewer. You've started with the Uganda Law Society. Over the past few weeks, there has been an argument that the Law Society has underrepresented lawyers in Uganda, but not only the Law Society, even those that are against, those that subscribe to the new bar of President Isaac Ssemakadde. There has been more letters written, according to so many social media critics. Many of them have come out to say, we have seen so many letters written, more than those that Paul wrote to the Galatians, to the Philippians, to all of those particular societies, yes, within the New Testament. But of course, there's still some bit of the wrangles here and there in regards to those who feel Isaac Ssemakadde is not meant to lead the Law Society for the next 2 years. But then he also has most of the support coming in from other radical lawyers who believe in his kind of leadership, or many who believe in his sentiments in relation to the law and how things are supposed to be moving. And of course, many of them will say, welcome to the bar. And here is the bar that belongs to Counsel Ssemakadde. But then also, Olive, we are now officially into the last month of the year, which is December. And over the weekend, I look back and realize how fast this year has moved. And talking to quite a number of colleagues, they were also shocked that, hey, the year 2024 that started on a high note with high spirits, that maybe all of us will be somewhere in regards to financial decisions. Well, it does look like not so many of us have been able to achieve it, but thank God we are still alive to head into 2025. But yesterday was 1st December, which is globally celebrated as the International AIDS Day. And of course, a day where awareness is pretty much pushed, and many people are always reminded to check on their, to check and test, to know their status. And surprisingly, Uganda's move, or Uganda's target to end infections by 2030 seems to be, you know, a little bit under the traffic, if that's the word to use, because the new infection rates do not actually put a better picture for us. Because the worry is for those who are actually pushing for this to put an end to HIV spread in the country by 2030, are saying that the new infection rates are a bit scary and worrying, and it clearly shows that not so many Ugandans are worried about the HIV AIDS, apart from those who already got infected and are not willing to continuously spread it to the others. However, the unfortunate bit is that we also have those others who feel they cannot live with the virus alone, and they would rather continuously spread it, and at the expense of also those who do not care about their life choices or their health choices. But at the end of it all, here we are, and a happy new month to all our dear viewer who is waking up, who is just woken up to get started with the business day with us here this morning.
All right, and still, Jerome, regarding the same on the infection and prevalence of HIV and AIDS in the country, we see that the prevalence rate in Uganda is at 5.1%, and new infections are estimated to be 38,000, down from 83,000 in 2010. So a lot of work has gone in here, and I laud the government on the good work done, but also new Ugandans that have taken protection, testing, and taking medicine very seriously. We still have a lot of work to do, because that 5.1%, we need to reduce it to 0. Like Jerome said, we need to not have new HIV infections by 2030, and next year is 2025, just what, 29 days away from now. So we really need to do good work within the next 5 years to ensure that the government can only take care of the 1.4 million people that are currently living with HIV and AIDS and that are on treatment. You should know that HIV treatment is very expensive, and in Uganda we get it free of charge. So the only way for the people that are already living with the virus to have a good semblance of life is for them to continue taking medication. But now, if let's say 49 million people and half of that is infected, that would not be possible. So guard yourself, protect yourself, know your status, and test, and test some more. Good morning, Mr. Nyenyintono.
A lovely morning to you, and of course the young lad Joram Sonko here with us, and you, our viewers. Welcome to a new month. Yes, yesterday was the first of this very new month and the last month of the year, and it is still World AIDS Day, like my colleagues have said. But important to note is we seem to be having some bit of success when it comes to reducing infections. I was looking at new infections have reduced by 45%. Now that is from 68,000 in 2017 to 38,000 as by December 2023. So there is a reduction there, and of course more people are getting on ARVs, on the various drugs, and sticking to that. Now remember, the goal of ending HIV/AIDS by 2030, ending new infections by 2030, we are sure that we need to have at least 95% of our population test for HIV/AIDS. Now, when we look at statistics, what is very funny, we have a population of about 45 million Ugandans, and when you look at the people that tested, to know their test status, they are only 9 million. So what does that mean? That a big chunk of Ugandans do not know their status.
And now, that's not good. And
that's not good. They have not tested. They don't know their status. Now, when we talk about the 1.4 million Ugandans living with HIV/AIDS, we forget that there is a huge chunk of people who may be living with HIV/AIDS, but they're not aware. So this is why these statistics also need to really scrutinize them very well. When you say new infections have reduced, yes, but you're looking at the number of people who tested, but there's that chunk that has never tested. Now that is where statistics sometimes of diseases require testing become complicated. What does it mean for you watching us? Yes. AIDS is still there, and so much, because a drop in the ocean are the only one that test. And if we say we must end HIV by 2030, we must have
new HIV infections.
Yeah, new infections. You must have 95% test. Have you had 95% of our population test? The answer is no. You must have the 95, those that test, get on medication, stick on medication to suppress the viral load. So if we do not do that, then we won't end new infections by 2030, which is the global target.
And you're right, Robert. That's why the message on testing and someone knowing their status is very important. But still, Robert, a lot of work has been done 2010 is not so far away from now, as in it's not so long ago, it is 14 years ago. And if you look at some of the numbers being shared, it shows that new infections are estimated to be 38,000, down from 83,000 in 2010. And then AIDS-related deaths are estimated to be 19,000, down from 53,000 in 2010. Then babies that are born with HIV are estimated to be 4,700, down from 30,000 in 2010. So I believe this is good, because at least when we look at these numbers, Robert, we know that at least when it comes to, let's say, childbearing, every mother that is pregnant, at least if they go to the hospital, they are tested. It is mandatory.
Yes.
And then the babies are also tested. It is mandatory. So this is good. From 30,000 babies with HIV to 4,700. Good work. But the prevalence of HIV in certain areas in Uganda is still high, with Fort Portal at 17.8%, Busheng at 66.7%, and in Masaka 58.4%, Mbarara 57.9%, and Rukunjiri at 53.3%. So when you look at those numbers, you need to ask yourself, what do you do when you visit these places? And
know your status
we must
and stay safe.
Exactly.
That's what we can say. If you can't avoid, use protection, because we need you. Now let's dive into our local stories, beginning still with this very story, where government's efforts to end HIV/AIDS by 2030 are showing progress, with most persons living with HIV/AIDS enrolled on ARV treatment. Mother-to-child transmission and new infections have decreased, while testing and treatment plus adherence to medication remains successful. Religious leaders have emphasized the need for parents to play an active role in instilling spiritual values in their children while having honest conversations about the realities. Persons living with HIV are calling for operationalization of the AIDS Trust Fund to combat stigma and integrate government programs to support those affected. The commemoration of World AIDS Day was held in Buyende district with a call of action by religious leaders to intensify efforts to addressing stigma against persons living with HIV/AIDS. They emphasized parents having honest conversations with their children on spiritual values. Persons living with HIV have called for the operationalization of the AIDS Trust Fund. The data as of December 2023 shows that 9 million people were tested for HIV/AIDS in Uganda, an increase from 6.8 million the previous year. Among those tested, 144,000 were diagnosed with HIV/AIDS, and 95% of them were enrolled on treatment. New infections have reduced by 45%, from 68,000 in 2017 to 38,000 by December 2023. The Chief Justice of Uganda, Alfonso Winnie-Dolo, has implored the great services of the retired judicial officers from the year 2023 and 2024, stressing that their legacy will continue to inspire future generations. These remarks came at a dinner in honor of retirees held at the Supreme Court in Kampala. At least 93 individuals, including judicial officers and non-judicial staff, received accolades and certificates for their dedicated service after retiring in 2023. Supreme Court Justice Faith Mwonda, who served for 40 years, High Court Judge Godfrey Namundi, with 41 years of service, and Commissioner of Engineering and Technical Services, Dr. Christopher Ebel, who served for 26 years, were among those recognized. The Chief Justice Alfonso Winnie-Dolo stressed that celebration was to celebrate the significant impact made by these during their tenure in the judiciary. Dolo called on judiciary to jointly work together to address wind blowing in judiciary with response to alternative dispute resolutions, to bring harmony in society. Retired Supreme Court Judge Justice Faith Muhonda, one of the people honored, expressed her gratitude to the judiciary for recognizing her service. Reflecting on her career, she shared that she was inspired to pursue law by Judge Deborah, known for her hard work despite operating court under her tree. Still on our local stories, members of the public have been advised about different languages and immerse themselves in customs, traditions, and values that underpin those languages. The Vice Chancellor, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, was speaking at the 10th anniversary of Chinese Language Day at Makerere University Main Hall building. Professor Barnabas Nawangwe commended the people and the Institute for promoting Chinese language and culture, as well as acting as a bridge to foster strong ties between Uganda and China. Dr. Gilbert Gumoshabe encouraged students to embrace Chinese language and promote employment opportunities in the country. He also pledged that the Chinese language will become an integral part of various colleges, including engineering, sciences, and business. Finally, from the local scene, the First Lady Janet Kataha Museveni has advised married couples to respect the pillar of marriage so as to nurture children for future generations. The message was delivered by the Commissioner General, Uganda Revenue Authority, John Rujoki Musinguzi, at the launch of Grace Springs, with focus on family, aiming at ending family violence initiatives at Africa Bible University in Lubowa. The Grace Springs on Family Focus has launched an initiative that targets having peaceful families in Uganda. It calls upon parents to nurture children to make future generations. The Commissioner General, Uganda Revenue Authority, represented the First Lady, also the Minister for Education and Sports, Janet Museveni, at the launch. Janet Museveni advised parents to nurture children in faith. The First Lady also was concerned over the increasing family violence, thus calling upon religious leaders to preach values that cherish marriage values. The founding director, Grace Springs Focus on Families, Dora Kibende, highlighted key principles of the initiative. The CEO of Focus on Family Africa, Gremen Chanel, mentioned the major causes of family violence in Africa. Justice Mike Chibita said despite the type of marriage, couples must respect marriages and one another.
Now we move on to international news, where US President Joe Biden has issued an official pardon for his son Hunter, who was facing sentencing for 2 criminal cases despite previously ruling it out. In a statement, the president said his son had been singled out and called his cases a miscarriage of justice. Hunter Biden pleaded guilty to tax charges earlier in September and was found guilty of being an illegal drug user in possession of a gun in June, becoming the first child of a sitting president to be convicted of a crime. Reacting to the pardon, President-elect Donald Trump said, and I quote, "Does the pardon given by Joe to Hunter include the 6 January hostages who have now been imprisoned for years, such as an abuse and miscarriage of justice?" End quote. The full and unconditional pardon comes after the president had previously said he would not give his son clemency. Just a couple of months ago, in September, the White House press secretary said that Biden would not issue a pardon for his son. Well, that does it for our international news, and we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we will be discussing something to do with wildlife. Stick around.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.